Hey, what's up you guys? Paul here. So today we've gathered around the table to talk about another expensive Yu-Gi-Oh card. It feels like it hasn't been that long since the last one, but here we are, right? So this one comes to us from the upcoming Yu-Gi-Oh set, Maze of Millennia, which releases next week. But if you've been following the news, you'll know that this week the Konami-sponsored content creators released their box openings where we got to see an early look at some of the cards in the set. We got to see cool new things like the Flame Swordsman support cards. I'm really excited about that. As well as a few neat reprints like Triple Tactics Thrust. But most importantly, we got to find out about some very influential, high-impact cards coming very soon, like Transaction Rollback, and the subject of today's video, Bonfire, a normal spell that lets you search a pyro monster from your deck, similar to a card like Reinforcement of the Army, or Fossil Dig, or Fire Formation Tinky. So why is this such a big deal? Well, because Bonfire is an ultra rare in the set, and this is one of those sets that's got some rares, some supers, some ultras. But more importantly, its pre-order price right now is over $100. In fact, it's been as high as about $130. And so we find ourselves once again at a bit of an impasse, right? And so the discourse begins. Where to start? If you're a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh player, you know that you're going to need this card in order to compete. That's kind of not a secret, right? If you've been playing the Snake Eye deck, then you're probably used to this. You had to buy Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils, you had to buy Diabell Star, and there are a bunch of other, expensive extra deck things and other staples that you might have needed to play your deck. Well, now you got to add Bonfire onto the list because it searches for Pyro monsters, and Pyro is kind of the hot type right now, no pun intended. But yeah, we've got Snake Eye Populous coming out really soon, and it seems like the Snake Eye kind of Diabell Star deck is going to be at the height of competition. If you want to compete, if you want to win, this is the card used to best increase your chances. However, it's also kind of a important card for another reason, right? Like I said, it's a Pyro support card, and Pyros have been around since this game's inception, but they've never gotten a Rhoda-like card. Crazy it took 25 years, I know, but here we are. And so if you've been playing a deck like, let's say, Volcanics, or I can't even think of another Pyro archetype, but if you've been playing a deck like Volcanics, or just any other sort of fire-themed deck, then you've been waiting a long time for this card. It's kind of cool that Fire is getting so much support right now. The thing is, though, whether you're casual or competitive or what, you gotta try to find your way to some copies of Bonfire. You could do the official method of just opening packs of Maze of Millennia until you get lucky and pull 3 of them, or you can buy them on the secondary market. But in the secondary market, they're pricey. So yeah, the discourse comes down to, is it okay that these cards cost the price that they do? And what do we do about it, right? We've got one side that says, yep, well, this is the cost of doing business. If you want to play this game and you want to win, you buy the cards, tough luck, stop complaining, that's the end of the story, right? Sucks, but you got to get them. There's the other side that says, well, they're like Rhoda is a common, right? Like, why do I have to pay $1 billion for Bonfire? It should be accessible to everybody. And I actually did a video on this really recently. We talked about, Wanted and all that stuff, so I don't want to repeat too many of the points I have in that video. The short answer is that I think it's crazy that card prices get that high. I don't really like it. I wish Konami could do some mixed rarity printing or some other method of kind of bringing prices down or offering people different levels of rarity so that these things don't have to cost so much, or at least that everybody can play them. And if you want an expensive version, you can have that. That's like shiny and all that stuff. But, otherwise you can just play a, peasant's common version, right? So I don't want to talk too much more about that. Instead, I actually was thinking about something when I was looking at this whole discourse. And that is, well, first and foremost, these are pre-order prices. So even though the card says it's like pre-ordering for $130, it's obviously not going to actually cost $130, or God help us if it actually does, but I don't think that it will. This is a typical thing with pre-orders. People get hyped up and they just, they want to buy their copies and have them on order now so I can have them on day one. And, it hikes up the price. And it kind of brought me to my next thought, which is that as easy as it is to blame Konami here, and I'm not saying that they're guiltless, but as easy as it is to blame Konami and be like, oh my god, Konami's making this game so expensive, they made Bonfire cost $130 to spite all of us. I'm not so sure about that. So the way this set works is that it does have, commons, rares, supers, ultras. So unlike a mainline set, you're not getting like a super in every single pack, but yeah. So I think that the way that it kind of shakes out is no one's making you buy Bonfire, right? No one's making you, but you do want it. But you don't have to buy it. You could buy packs and get it and like try to pull it. You could trade at your locals. You could wait. I think that the main issue I have with Bonfire's like kind of choice of rarity here is that historically these cards have not been printed at this rarity when they released. So it feels kind of like an on-purpose decision a little bit. So like when Reinforcement of the Army released in Legacy of Darkness, I want to say, it was a super rare. So not a common, but like a fairly accessible super rare. And then other examples of cards like Fossil Dig, that came out in Ancient Prophecy and it was a common. And I believe, what was the next one? Tinky came out in Cosmo Blazer and it was also a common. So there's certainly a precedent here that's been set where like, yeah, these cards typically kind of release at accessible rarities for everyone. Why then does like the Pyro one have to be, released as an ultra rare in a set where you're not like guaranteed to get like, the ultra rare that you want all the time? Well, that's like the main thing I take issue with. I think that like going on about like mixed rarities and stuff in a side set like this, there's not really much point. These side sets aren't going to really have that sort of thing. I don't expect them to. I just think that they could have probably printed it at a slightly lower rarity. Would have been nice. But the other thing I was going to say is that while Konami has control over that, sure, I think that we have got like we can't allow these pre-order prices to look like this because pre-order prices are not something Konami sets. That is something that like people set. Vendors, card shops, whatever. Someone just decided that they're going to list these Bonfires at like $100 and see who bites. And I think that's where like the real problem lies. Because when they set that price at $100, and it's effectively price setting, right? Like no one, there's not an MSRP on a copy of Bonfire. It just kind of gets, someone throws a price into the void, and that's sort of what happens. That's what, like, I don't know, something about that rubs me the wrong way. Like, it would be nice if we as a community took a little bit more control over our own card prices because we choose to pay this much for these cards. So, like, maybe just don't list it that high if you're like a vendor. It sort of suggests that there's a bit of like a lack of confidence, I suppose, in the value of buying Yu-Gi-Oh! Sealed product if you're maybe a card shop owner or a vendor, and that's where that, $90, $100, $110 price tag comes in. So, like, because people feel that maybe cracking open a box will not yield them returns on the price of the box, they have to sort of force a card to be more expensive and then just see if that price sticks. Right now, it's looking like it's sticking, but we know that it'll go down a little bit. How low, that's anyone's guess. I guess what I'm trying to say here, though, is whatever you do, do not pre-order a Bonfire for $90 or $100 or certainly not $130. Just like wait for the set to come out. Like we still don't actually know exactly what pull rates will look like on this set. We've only seen a few boxes be opened in videos. It might be that this card is not at all short printed. It's just another ultra that's easy to pull. And we don't know how many like ultras you'll get per box. Will it be something like Wild Survivors where you're getting like, 3 ultras in a whole box? Or will it be maybe something closer to 4 or 5? Will Bonfire be an easy thing to see or a hard thing to see? I think that we should wait for those answers to come out because while I totally get the discourse around, oh my God, game's too expensive, and I do think it is too expensive if you're going to have to buy this for $100, but I think we should probably wait, withhold some judgment, and see where that actually lands. I also will say this, I think that this is going to be one of those cards where Konami might need to reprint it sooner rather than later, just because it's certainly, the discourse right now makes it seem like this is going to be a little bit of a problematic card. We know that Fossil Digs, like I said, and Tinky, like I said, and even Rhoda are available in a lot of different rarities, and so it seems weird that like one type gets kind of price gate kept like this. So I remember like last year that card, I think it's Akitama, I hope I'm remembering the name correctly, it came out in Cyberstorm Access and then got reprinted in Battles of Legend like a month and a half later. So maybe they'll do something like that with Bonfire, just to kind of reprint it in another set at a more accessible rarity. I think that'd be really good. I think it just doesn't, it's not a great look to do it, like to make this thing an ultra rare and be really hard to pull and all that stuff. So yeah, while I totally still have the same opinions that cards shouldn't cost this much, I think the only new contribution I will add here is that we should not let them cost this much. And this is a case of simply choosing not to pre-order this card for this exorbitant price. Even if you're a very competitive type and you think that you're going to need to have it day one, I still say don't do the pre-order. I still say just wait, try to pull it yourself or get it yourself, trade for it yourself, buy the single when the price goes down. Don't play into kind of the game of like letting the $100 price tag validate itself. That's something that I think us Yu-Gi-Oh players can control. So hopefully maybe more people will. Anyways, I'd love to hear what you guys think about Bonfire down in the comments. I mean, I'm certainly glad the card exists. I think it's a really cool concept for a card. I just do not like the idea of it costing as much as it does. Maybe one day Konami will just give us all these cards as common and it'll be perfect. But until then, we all have to suffer together. All right, that's going to be it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Fast turn.